Hey, welcome aboard the 757 Spy flight deck. Boy, this airplane has sure changed an awful lot since the last time I did a cold and dark video. This is the fly-by-wire A320neo. So A32NX is, I think, the designation that they have over on their webpage. And I got to tell you, I really do enjoy this airplane. It is becoming more and more solid every day. And hello, welcome to the Spy Flight Deck. I'm Dave. I'm usually over on Twitch with an awful lot of flying friends, and we're just exploring the world in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and also over on X-Plane. We do all sorts of VATSIM events. We'll chat about that later. Let's get into this airplane right here, and I'm going to start off with basically what we're doing today. This is the United A32NX. I think United flies A320s. I don't think that United actually has the NX or the Neos in their fleet yet. They probably could. We're going from Roanoke, Virginia to Chicago O'Hare because if you've been over on the Spy Flight, you know it's all about pizza, and Chicago pizza is my favorite, so there you go. Our departure time is 9:35 a.m. Eastern Time. We are at Gate 2 of Roanoke Regional Airport. Add-ons that I'm using, Sim Toolkit Pro and SimBrief together with Navigraph charts and data. I'm also using NDP charts, the Lido style of charts from Aerosoft. So Navigraph is what I'm using for data. I'm using the Lido style of charts here in the Airbus. Also, Toolbar Pushback just got a very, very big update. So we're also going to take a look at that in this as well. So a couple of things here. First of all, I'm going to keep this super simple. With airplanes like this, especially with the increasing level of complexity in Microsoft Flight Simulator, we can jump down rabbit holes later. And when it comes to flight simulations, let me tell you, there are more rabbit holes than you can jump down than there are rabbits. One little thing that I was going to tell you to suggest, Windows volume mixer, the little mixer application. Let me show you. It's really pretty small. It's this little thing right here. And you don't need to have them all open here, but I really like to have this one open, especially if you're going to start getting on VATSIM, because this volume mixer is absolutely great. It sounds pretty quiet right now. Let's turn this up. Yeah, there's the sound from the simulator. So I do suggest having this, and I've actually shortcutted volume mixer to my toolbar on Windows. Gotta tell you, it really does. It makes an awful lot of difference, and the best part is it's free. Finally, as I like to say on these things, this is not the right way versus the wrong way. This is just what works for me. My goal today is, if you're relatively new to Microsoft Flight Simulator in particular, increasingly complex jets, the goal is to get out of the gate, down the runway, up in the air, cruise, descend, land, and get back to the gate. This is what works for me, and if I can get this moving for you, that's pretty good news. Here's our flight plan today. Taking off of runway 24 at Roanoke. That's the real runway that the real Roanoke is using. And I go to a variety of different websites online to be able to figure out what airports, what runways are at what airports, especially if I'm not on VATSIM. And one of the best ones right now is FlightAware. And so FlightAware is where I go just to see what the real world is doing. And it works pretty good for me. Our cruise level today is flight level 360. There's a cold front in the middle part of the U.S., and there's a lot of precip involved, so we're going to probably be lucky enough to fly a little bit above there. There's departure weather. It looks like winds are variable at 4 knots right now. 10 miles visibility out of Roanoke Regional. Very nice flying weather. Not so nice in Chicago. We got snow and freezing rain. The temperature is below freezing, and just not the nicest day in the neighborhood. Fortunately, I'm sure that the Chicago pizza is going to be warm for us. Our flight time for today is 1 hour and 28 minutes. Flight distance 515 nautical miles, and right now Chicago is landing on the 28, so we should be good to go there. All right, let's go and hop into the airplane and start doing the things that we enjoy doing the most, and that's pushing all the buttons. And my flight plans are already set up, so we are here at Roanoke Regional. The real flight that United flies from Roanoke Regional up to Chicago O'Hare departed from Gate 2, and there is Gate 2, and this is the perfect opportunity for us to do the first steps of Toolbar Pushback. And for the first steps on this thing, we're going to go to the aircraft, and let's get the jetway. Now, sometimes the jetway goes into freak-out mode. Right now, the jetways, they don't have the parking places set too terribly well at some of the default airports. So you can see the jetway is being really weird, and it's going to the other side of the airplane. You're going to run into that. It's not broken. There's nothing wrong with toolbar pushback. What's going on is they just need to clean up this airport a little bit. We could also, if we wanted to, we can get the baggage carts going. Let's also get some catering going. Because, hey, you know, we got to have some food and stuff. If it's a morning flight on United, it's coffee and Stroop waffles, right? So we got that going on for us, too. All right, so all of this is looking good. And the parking brake is on, and we're going to do more toolbar pushback things in just a few minutes. Here comes the catering truck, and there goes the baggage, and all of that's good, except, of course, for the weird jetway, but that happens. Okay, let's climb in the cockpit. I've only done one thing with this cockpit since I got there, and usually the first thing that I will do is I will go over to the fly pad here, and I will just activate it. If the fly pad is activating, then that's a good indicator to me that the airplane's probably going to work for me, and that's a good thing. Next thing I'm going to do is come over here, and I'm going to look down, and I'm going to move my control sticks. These are the sticks and rudder pedals that I have here in my simulated cockpit. I just want to make sure that all of my controls are working. Sometimes the controls are not working too terribly well. And when that happens, you'll go and set the whole airplane up and then try and do things and they don't work. So check those out first. Okay, now that we've done our little pre-flight checks, we can come down here and go, if you've filed your flight plan through SimBrief, click this. If you don't have this this airplane connected to SimBrief, you set that up in the settings page. It's also, by the way, where you can go and set up ACARS, because this airplane now is doing CPDLC. That's like text messaging for air traffic control on airplanes. It's really pretty cool. Roanoke to Chicago, that's in there. Our departure time is 35 minutes after the hour. So one of the things is as you progress in the world of flight simulation, you're going to want to fly in bigger events like VATSIM's Big Time Cross the Pond. And the new big one, too, is Cross the Land. Well, the thing about those big events is you have to have your departure. You have to be ready to go at your departure time, just like the real airliners, because they have so many airplanes. So departure time is going to be relatively important. Let's see if I can hit it today. Still early in the morning. Okay, time to turn on the airplane. That means it's the batteries, battery 1 and battery 2. Next thing I am going to do is just punch in my external power as we come down here and turn navigation and logo lights on. Those are the colored lights you see on the wingtips of the airplane. The white light in the back, that just lets anybody on the ground know that there's somebody sitting in the airplane pushing buttons. You know, it might move, so just be ready to move. No smoking, I'm going to turn that to on, and that's because we're going to be fueling the airplane. Overhead integrated lighting. Notice how as I turn this up, all of the integrated lighting just pops up. It just makes it easier for me to see stuff. And there we go. There's the upper panel. Looking down here, let's turn up the intensity here on the primary flight display, often called the PFD, and I'm turning that up to about 9 or 10 o'clock. Same thing here on the ND, that's the navigation display. This has got two controls on it. The one in the back controls the intensity of the map. As we continue down here, ECAM lower display, about 10 o'clock. And then I'm going to move down here, and there's also another integrated lighting control. That's for the pedestal. If it were nighttime, I'd turn on the floodlights here just a bit too. And the last thing I'm going to do, you see the two knobs underneath the flight control unit? Sometimes called the FCU, and no, I wasn't just cussing. Look over here and turn the knob on the left up. That's integrated lighting. If you need to, you can also turn up the intensity here of the instruments, of the display, the indicators. And so our airplane is slowly coming to life here. There's the good news. Let's go down here. Now you can see, because the if the jetway had connected to the left front door, it would also be indicating that that door is open. But because the jetway had a little nutty this morning, it's not, but there should be a door open. It also shows the back cabin door is open here too, so that is a problem. with that. Again, it's not this airplane. It's not toolbar pushback. They just need to realign the airports a little bit later. Put the parking spot where the parking spot's supposed to be. But this is a default airport. Next step, go to the McDo, and we're going to go to the ATSU. And I just zoomed out, scrolled down over on some flight notes. ATSU stands for Air Traffic Services Unit. So let's do that. And thanks to Captain Sibby over on Twitch for reminding me what that is. We're going to clear that little reminder down there, and we're going to go to AOC, Airline Operations Control. Thanks again to Captain Sibby for telling me about that one. Init. Let's do the init page, and if you've got your flight plan from SimBrief and you've connected the airplane to SimBrief, you can do init data request. And there is our flight data. Roanoke to Chicago, hour and 28 minutes. Fuel on board right now is 3.9. We're going to fix that. Let's go back to Air Operations Control, and we're going to go to WB, W&B, weight and balance. And let's go ahead and we're going to do an OFP request. OFP, Operational Flight Plan. And what that is doing is that's going and getting our zero fuel weight. Okay? And what it got for us is the number of passengers we're carrying. And that's 118. The jetway is connected. Well, sort of. So anyway, let's just hit start. And we're going to start getting the passengers boarding. If you listen carefully, you can hear there's boarding music now and boarding passenger noises and stuff like that. You can turn those off. Okay, so this is coming together really nicely. Let's go let's go to the init page now. And we're going to init request. This is going to actually get the flight plan. This is going to get all the waypoints in there, and it's inserting everything. There's our cruise level, flight level 360, cost index, everything that we need in there. Flight plan uplink has been done. And uplink insert is in progress. So we're just going to clear those. Now that we've got those done, let's teach the airplane where the airplane is. And that's going to be the ADAIR system and the IR. This is how the airplane knows where it is. So we're going to turn 3 of these on. 1, 2, and 3. While I'm up here, I'm also going to go down to crew supply, and I'm going to just turn that on right now. Okay, so all of this is good. We have IR alignment. It's going to take 7 minutes. That's the airplane setting up all of its internal reference points, so it knows exactly where we are in the sky. Now let's come over here and do refueling, and let's go and hit the little clipboard, and it says fuel. I usually have to click this over to real time. You can do instant refueling too. And then over on your flight plan, you're going to need to get something. And on the style of flight plan that I use, which is the United Airlines 2018 style of flight plans, what you do here is this is page 10 of a 57-page PDF file that comes down with your flight plan. Talk about rabbit holes that you can jump down. 58 pages of flight plan? Yeah. But what we want out of this one right now is planned gate fuel. And that's 7633, 7.6 tons of fuel. So let's go ahead and put the clicker in here and erase this number and go 7633. And then after that, I'm going to hit click. And now all of a sudden, we have fueling going on. And you'll see this number rising. If that number's rising, that means the airplane's getting its fuel. Okay, we're good to go here. Let's go ahead and start doing flight plan stuff. So for the flight plan today, Roanoke Regional Airport is taking off on runway 24. So let's go to runway 24. And there's runway 24.
From the flight deck. On behalf of myself, your captain, the first officer, and cabin crew, I'd like to take this time to welcome you aboard our flight. We're just wrapping up some paperwork up front here and waiting to receive final numbers from the ground crew, then we'll be on our way. Flight attendants will be coming through the cabin shortly with a very important safety briefing. We do ask that you give them your full, undivided attention as they review the safety operations of this Airbus aircraft. We do appreciate your business having you aboard this flight. If there's anything we do to make your flight any more enjoyable, please don't hesitate to ask. Welcome aboard.
Okay, aside from mocking the announcement, if you want, you can turn those off, but, okay. That's a great announcement. I like the fact that they put those in there. So, back to the flight plan. SIDS, there were no SIDS for our departure. So we're going to go none, and let's insert this into the flight plan. And there is our flight plan. Now, it does have us taking off and going directly over the Roanoke VOR, We'll take a look at that in just a second. Coming into Chicago O'Hare. Let's go ahead and pop this in really fast. SimBrief says 28 right. That is what the real world Chicago is landing. So let's find our ILS for runway 28 right. So 28 right. There it is. ILS 28 right. I went past it. So click this. Now our star, we got the Watson for arrival. So let's go ahead and see if we can't find Watson at the bottom. Watson 4. There's Watson 4. And Vogler. Let's just go ahead and pop Vogler in right now as the transition. And then transitioning in, it should be Rod. Okay, all of that's in. Look at that. ILS 28 right, Vogler, Watson 4, Rod, and insert. What did all of that mean? Okay, so let's go up here. And we're going to switch the map display, the navigation display, to plan mode. I'm going to widen this display out to a 20-mile range, and I'm going to turn on constraints. Now, back here in main view, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my pointer over the navigation display, and I'm going to hold down the right alternate button, and I'm going to click it. Now, if your main monitor is like something other than the monitor that you're flying on, which is the way I do it because I live stream a lot, it's going to go and put a new window over on your main active monitor. And so what I like to do is take this big old map, and down we go. And so here we all are after takeoff. We're going to take off and then make a right turn over to Roanoke. There's going to be a discontinuity there. That's okay. After we take off and get going, we'll just do direct to Roanoke, and that should get us on our way to Roanoke. So let's go down here. After Roanoke, there's Jeff's, there's Hacks, there's Summit, Vladdy, Empty, Meekin, and then Rod. Okay, here's this thing called Rod. That's the beginning of the arrival. And if we come over here and take a look at the star, we kind of look in here, and up there's a thing called Rod. And so there's Rod Watson to Fort Wayne. There's something called Pronk, Daffy, Watson, Hopto, Prize, Hulls. And then there's this thing called CNAC. And then after CNAC, we should look out here. Now, Vogler, I think, is on the other side of CNAC. So we may have a little bit of a bump there. Let's look and see. But then this is going to be what takes us into our runway. So after Rod, we'll keep going. And the real pilots are doing this too. They're going to go through the flight plan and see if all of the lines, like, you know, match. So here we go. Continuing up here. There's Hulls, there's Style, there's Dweeb. Okay, there's Vogler, and here's CNAC. You see how these things are a little bit kind of messed up? So why don't we go over here? Here's this thing called Vinny. Okay, let's go, and I'm going to go hit clear Vogler. Now, it may take a while for this thing to realize what happened. Let's go down one and see what happens. Now we'll go up. Ah, there's CNAC, and it takes it right into Vinny. How about that? So you can edit the flight plan now. Used to be you couldn't do that. So, and by the way, something's pretty exciting going on with this airplane. We're expecting a version 2 of the McDo coming soon. That's going to be nice. Now, these two, the SID and the Star, Star and the ILS do not really connect with each other. So if you look at the Star, this takes us out at a waypoint called CNAC, and our next waypoint after that is going to be Vinny. Well, where's Vinny? Do I have the wrong map here? Do I not know what I'm doing? Very probably. Let's see what I screwed up. So there, oh, Vinky. Well, that's Vinky. Uh-oh, you know what I did? I totally screwed up my runway. 27 right. We're not doing 27 right. Our ILS is 28 right. What are we going to do there? Let's just fix it. Used to be this would be a problem. Now we can fix it like the real pilots. Let's go to arrival, and let's find the correct runway. So ILS 28 right. There's 27. There's 28 center, left, 28 right. I'll bet this makes all the difference in the world. Now we may have to go and put our SID and our Star back in. So let's find Watson, our SID and our Star, just our Star. There's Watson 4. GPS primary, that just means that all the alignment stuff is done. So we can clear that. No vias. Let's not go to Vogler this time. Let's go to no, and then don't forget to come down here and put in rod again. You see how easy this thing was to fix? Insert. Now this is going to take you back to your flight plan. Now notice the difference here too. See, the airplane is put on your map. That means that all of the alignment is done and the airplane knows where it is in the world. So we can come out here and we can just go right on through. There's Rod, there's Fort Wayne, there's Pronk, coming up on Daffy and Watson. There's Dweeb, there's Senac. Okay, there's Adam. And if we take a look here, look at this. Now all of a sudden we have checkpoints again. There's Adam, that looks good. So an important thing here, you notice that these lines don't seem to match, just like I was yammering about before I discovered I chose the wrong runway. Okay, so one of the things is this is going to be vectors, which is the way they have it planned. After CNAC, they're going to vector us in to pick up the ILS for landing. So right now, our flight plan is absolutely perfect. One of the things is you'll notice that I screw up every now and then. The important thing to remember is that now you can fix those things with the McDo, and that's okay. The real world pilots probably don't screw up. They're really good at it. Plus, there's also the other pilot that's going to go through and run through the flight plan here. So you don't want to catch the other, you don't want the other guy to catch you screwing up. So they're a little more careful. They're also not live streaming like I am too. So everything is coming together here. Let's go ahead and come up and turn on the APU. So master switch, and you can look down here, and eventually you'll see a sign that says the flap is open. If we come over here and look back in here, and I was talking too long, but if you come back here, as soon as you turn on the master switch and come back and look at this thing here, you'll actually hear a little bzzz. It's the sound of the little motor opening the flap. And now let's go to start, and the APU is going to start on up. And if you come back out here, APU is starting. How about that? Let's go ahead and start getting rid of some things. I think the Stroop waffles are aboard. So let's get toolbar pushback here. And we're going to go ahead and let's get rid of catering and baggage. So we're going to just click those two right now. There goes the baggage cart. The catering truck is going to, look at that, it's lowering. So our catering is now aboard and our Stroop waffles are in good shape. Okay, so all this looks pretty good. Let's go back to McDo menu. Let's go back to the ATSU. AOC. Let's look down here at weight and balance. 118 passengers. Our passengers are aboard and ready to go. So we're going to go and do what's called the init page B. And page B is over here. And for this, all you can go and get your numbers off your flight plan. I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to click this, and this is going to get my zero fuel weight and my center of gravity. I'm going to put that in right there. Next thing, let's look up here at the gas gauge. 7.6 tons of fuel. Is that what I wanted boarded on the airplane? 7.6 tons of planned gate fuel. Our fuel is good. So we're going to go and put in 7.6. 7.6. And that's going to be in block. There's our fuel. Now it's going to go and do a little bit of math. While it's doing a little bit of math, I'm going to go over to a special website here. And this is a special website called the Performance Calculator. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put this in my flight notes for you. And so you can get this. If you're flying Airbuses, this is a great way to get good performance data for takeoff. Now, on this airplane, don't forget to hit the beta button for the A320neo and then switch your airplane to the A320neo. Okay? So you're going to need that. And let's go ahead and get our latest weather. For now, I use Sim Toolkit Pro. If we were on VATSIM, I would go someplace else. But let's go ahead and get Roanoke's departure weather. So there's probably new weather. And I've just put in KROA in the bottom, and I'm going to hit METAR. Here is the latest Roanoke weather. And I'm going to put this over in my flight notes. And I'm going to show you flight notes and stuff when we get up in the air and show you how I managed that kind of information in the sim cockpit. Oh, wow, look at all that. Nasty weather, snow in Chicago. The weather outside is frightful. Okay, so from there, we can put the weather information in. So QNH, altimeter is 2998. Now that is in inches of mercury, and this thing is in HPA, hectopascals for Europe. Switch it over to inches of mercury. That's all you have to do. The temperature in Roanoke right now is 22 degrees. The winds in Roanoke are variable at 4. I usually just go 0 at 0. You could go and put in, make it a tailwind if it's variable or something, but if it's less than 5 knots, I'm not going to worry about it. There's plenty of other things to worry about. Next, it needs to know about the runway. So come over to your charts. We're on runway 24 for our departure, so 2073. So let's go ahead and do 2073 for our meters. If you're using Jepson charts, you can change it to feet. The runway heading is going to be 237 degrees, 237. It's a dry runway, and Roanoke Regional Airport is 1,175 feet. 1,175 feet above sea level. Up for the airplane, I usually do air conditioning on. Sometimes you're going to turn on your air conditioning packs off. I can leave them on. I'm going to do flaps 2 for takeoff. And now I need another number. See that 25.0 center of gravity? So I'm going to go to 5.0 center of gravity. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and get my takeoff weight. It says 62.7. I'm going to go over here and go 62700. Okay, it says gross weight. I forget who told me, but somebody told me I really ought to just use takeoff weight in here. I don't know if that's true. That's what I'm doing. Now let's hit the calculate button. And we've got V1 of 128, no flex, so it's toga takeoff. And there is our flap setting, and so we can put all of that information into the performance page. So we're going to go to performance, flaps 2, and our trim setting is up 0.8, up 0.8. So we'll put that in there. No flex temperature for takeoff. Speeds 128, 128 once. That's V1. 128 is also our rotate, VR. And our V2 is 136. 136. That goes in there. All of this information is up here in this nice little takeoff page. The transition altitude here is wrong, and I'm not messing with thrust reduction and acceleration right now. I don't know if that's updated too. You also will get it in plain text here if you're having a hard time seeing the numbers. The trim setting up 0.8. I got that number right over there. So again, that's the Airbus calculator, and wow, does it work good. And now the McDo is ready to fly. So let's come on over here. I'm going to go and switch my map back over to ARC mode. I'm going to dial this into 10 miles. Our final cruising altitude is flight level 360, 36,000. If we were on VATSIM, I would put our cleared altitude for takeoff in, but we're not on VATSIM today. And here is everything looking pretty good. Maybe let's go to 20 miles on this. Yeah, that looks a little bit better for our departure. Okay, I think it's time to get rid of the jetway. So passengers are aboard. Let's do toolbar pushback. And let's click the jetway button. The jetway is going to go away. While the jetway goes away from the wrong side of the airplane, let's go to pushback. Now, this is where it's new. This is cool. Let's do pre-plan. Okay, it's going to load a new window. Okay, and so here it's going to show your airplane. So I'm just going to, let's just do a straight push. So here's a straight push. You could also spin it a little bit. How about if we spin a little bit too? And click it. That puts the airplane in its proper position, and then hit enter. Okay, so now it's all yellow. Let's go ahead and request our pushback truck. There goes the pushback truck. And now I think we can just go ahead and let this go. Now let's go back in the cockpit. We should set up a squawk code. We're not on VATSIM, but I do a squawk code anyway. So clear twice. 2, 1, 2, 3. Let's go ahead and turn it on to TARA. You squawk mode Charlie on taxiways in VATSIM, so that's why I'm turning that on right now. Let's also go up here. Let's make sure the passengers are seated. Our doors are closed. Let's arm the emergency exit lights. we're also going to move the airplane around. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the beacon. So the beacon is now on. Let's also disconnect from ground power.
Doors and cross-check.
Let's go ahead and disconnect from ground power. I'm going to get the APU bleed going. Should have done that a little sooner. And I'm going to turn the temperature down a few clicks in the back because there's more people back there. And at this point, the airplane is ready for pushback. Now, this airplane is getting a little more complex. And so one of the things I'm doing is eventually I'm going to dig out my old Airbus checklists, and I'm going to start running a checklist on this. It's getting better. Altimeter is 2998. Let's set 2998 in the altimeter. I do have all of my altimeters tied together up here. You do have to set the backup, but I'm all about tying my altimeters together because it's just me in the cockpit. I don't have 1,000 hands to do this two-person cockpit, so I tie my altimeters together. It helps. And I think we're ready for pushback, shall we? I'm going to go over. I'm using the Thrustmaster Airbus controls, so let's do parking brake off. And let's see if this thing starts pushing us. Look at that. How about that? Okay, dude, you're going to get run over. Some of the ground people aren't all that smart here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And it's even spinning us a bit. Shall we start engines? Okay, let's go over here. And I've got the controls set up on my Thrustmaster stuff. So there's the starter over to start. Look over here. Make sure we have pneumatic pressure to both of the engines. That's the PSI at the bottom. We do. So let's go ahead and start engine 2. Again, the Thrustmaster controls are working so well with this, and I got to tell you, it's getting pretty good. It really is getting pretty good with these controls. And you can look down here, and you can see the N2 is going up. Eventually, we're going to introduce FF. That's fuel flow. So when you start to see those two things going off, that's pretty good. Okay, once the airplane stops, I'm going to go ahead and put my parking brakes on. And that is going to get the pushback truck. It's going to lower the nose. Look at that. You can even see it lowering the nose. And the truck drives away. Pushback is done. How about that? The other thing that I really like about this kind of pushback is if we were on VATSIM, they might tell me to push with tail west, east, north, south. And in better pushback, you kind of set that a little bit early. And then it takes a long time for your pushback truck to show up. This is a lot easier to set up, and I really like that. Okay, we've got engine number... Oh, it's not doing anything. Guess why? Somebody forgot to turn on his fuel pumps. If you don't turn on your fuel pumps, there's no fuel. And if there's no fuel, you don't have the engines going. Fortunately, this airplane is forgiving, so it'll just sit there and say, hey, turn on your fuel, silly pilot. Okay, so that's good. Again, I'm kind of letting some of my little errors in setting this thing up just play by here in this video. I think it's important to see that you can screw something up and still recover. Your airplane does not crash and burn after that. And we're getting a good start on engine number 2. And at 20%, it's going to say available. At that point, that engine's up and running. We could start another engine. Let's go outside and watch this. This is something that Fly-by-Wire's done in a really good job. Watch the engine. I'm going to go ahead and start engine 1. Starting 1. The sounds are great. One of the things about flight simulator startup animations and stuff, they're usually pretty chunky. The startup animation on these engines is really good. So a little bit of flight simulator eye candy for you. Boy, these cars are sure driving fast around the airport. Every airport I go to, there's speed cops all over the place and signs, 20 miles an hour. These guys are driving like crazy people. Okay, and this engine is coming up pretty good. Looking good. At this point, while the engine start is going on, your real pilots are monitoring the startup. I'm going to go over here and look. After this, we're on the Echo taxiway. We'll go over to Foxtrot and Foxtrot Alpha, then Bravo, and then head on over here. So start getting an idea of where it is that you're going to go. If you're on VATSIM, have that chart ready as you're taking notes about where they're going to tell you where to go. The VATSIM controllers are notorious for talking very, very quickly about your taxi clearance. So when they say, you know, call for taxi, when you're calling for taxi, and they're going to say, okay, United 441, your taxi to runway 24, and then just start writing down the letters, and you can decode it later. Okay, 2 engines are both up and running. Let's go ahead and get the starter switch back. Okay, there's the starter switch back to normal. Let's go up here. We're done with the APU. So we'll turn off the APU. Let's look down here. If you sit kind of folded up in your chair and, you know, for long flights and stuff, now's the time to sit correctly. Do your control checks. We've already done sort of one at the beginning. That's to make sure your controls are connected. I definitely suggest that you do this again. And then look down here. Trim is going to be up 0.8. So it's a small little number. It's hard to see, but you're going to dial that number to up 0.8. We're going to come down here. I'm going to turn on predictive wind shear. I'm going to arm my speed brakes for departure. I'm going to reset my rudder trim. Transponder is on. I'm going to cheat now. I'm going to turn my traffic on too. Not going to see anything unless you're on VATSIM. Let's look up here. We're going to ring the bell, let the cabin know that we're going to roll the airplane around. I'm going to turn on the nose light.
Prepare for takeoff.
And everything's ready to go. Okay, tow brakes on. Parking brake is off. Release the tow brakes. Add a little bit of power. Not much. Taxiing outside the airplane is not easy, but it's cool to see. And we are out. Okay, there is a taxiway, so we call that what? Is that Foxtrot over there? Some airports have very accurate taxiway markings, others don't. Okay, see that line right there? This is us leaving the ramp control area, and now we would be talking to ground control. So here's the thing, sometimes on VATSIM, if you're at a bigger airport, one of the things that they will do is say push and start is at pilot's discretion, call at a certain checkpoint on the ground, or call for taxi or something like that. Particularly Atlanta, like if you're Atlanta Hartsfield, they're going to ask you to call at the end of the ramp. They don't have time to help you deal with the ramp at Hartsfield. It's a busy airport there in VATSIM land. So normally at airports, there's ramp control. That line that we just crossed was from ramp control over to ground control. Okay, we are coming up. We are on taxiway Alpha. Bravo should be next. And there should be a sign about Bravo. Okay, we've got 2 runways coming up here. You can see runway markings there. So this is probably a good indicator that Bravo is over here. I don't see the actual sign, but we also have our charts, so we know about that. It is winter time here where I live right now. There isn't snow on the ground here, but you might have noticed I have not dropped my flaps yet. If there's winter time and there's snow and stuff, the pilots aren't going to be dropping the flaps and all of that until they get closer to takeoff. They don't want to get a bunch of snow and ice and mud. That's how they say that in Roanoke, maybe. But anyhow, you don't want to go ahead and get a lot of that in your flap mechanism. So in the wintertime, I tend to deploy my flaps a little bit later. Okay, this is also a cargo hub for Central Virginia, so they've got a fairly big cargo area here. So we're doing a little jog to the left and around here as we go around a cargo hangar. Coming up on our runway, flaps 2. Let's also go ahead and do auto brakes to RTO. RTO rejected takeoff. If we don't fly, this will automatically slam on the brakes. I'm also taxiing at thrust idle. This airplane does pick up a little more speed at thrust idle, so we're going to throw on some brakes here and slow down a little bit. And let's also look down here and see, okay, passenger signs are on. We haven't done the takeoff config test. TO config. And the takeoff config is normal. Now this one now says that signs are on. So that's something new. And here comes Bravo 1. This is our takeoff point. You can see the wind's kind of gently whistling down the runway here. This would be a point where I would be running the before takeoff checklist. I'm just going to use the little ECAM checklist there. That's good. But like I said, this airplane's getting more and more complex, so I'm about ready to start digging out my checklists here. Ground control tower has probably got us saying hold short of runway 24. Here's the hold short line. So this is where we would do hold short. Final checks for takeoff. I think we're ready to go. Towers just cleared us for takeoff on runway 24, flying runway heading. So since we're going, when I get cleared onto a runway, this is when I turn my strobes on. You could also turn them to auto. I just turn them on. I also do one click on each of the landing lights. This airplane, the landing lights are on, they kind of drop down, little motors underneath the wings. So I have them ready to go, but I didn't turn them on. I don't want to blind somebody on the other taxiway or something. I'm also doing some over controlling since the last update. I think that I need to readjust the sensitivities on my rudder pedals. And here we are, we're ready to go. So landing lights now up full. They are now turning on. This lets everybody on the ground know that this airplane's serious about doing that flying thing. Okay, sit back. If you've got a gamer chair or just a chair and you sit back, you put your feet on the rudder pedals, get ready for takeoff. Make sure you lock the chair if you've got to recline. Otherwise, you go back like that, and that's a little annoying. So there is a halfway mark here. See where it says halfway? There's that 5. So I usually take my throttles and run the little blue knob up to just underneath that 5. Watch your throttles go up, your engines go up. At that point, I'm going to say my engines are stable. And then we go ahead and it is a flex takeoff. So just run your throttles all the way up to flex. Look down at your instrument. You can see it says manual toga. That's good. It says SRS. It doesn't always say runway these days. I probably screwed something up there. I don't know. And then the last thing on the right is the auto thrust. It should be colored blue. 100 knots, and we're already at V1 and rotate. Up, up, and away. Positive rate. Gear. There's gear up. How about that? Direct Roanoke. So let's go ahead and let's do a turn. Your initial up. Okay, it says lever climb up there. That means roll your throttles back to thrust. Uh-oh, speeding up, forgot to do flaps. Too busy live streaming and not enough flying. Flaps up. Your initial, you're gonna initially want to fly autopilot and stuff. This airplane flies by hand really, really nicely. So one of the things I'd say is just do small control movements. I'm hardly moving my stick at all. Okay, you can see that we're now turning direct towards Roanoke. Let's go and now do direct to direct Roanoke. Autopilot on. Okay, so I have a button on my stick, just like the real pilots actually have down here. There's the red button for the autopilot. I just pressed that and that turned on the autopilot. You can also come up here and hit this button. And we are now direct to Roanoke. We're flying pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and do speed brakes off. Let's also look at the map here. We can go up to about 40, 60. There was no SID or star or anything like that, so I'm also going to go to airports. I want to see airports. If I lose an engine, I want to know places where I can land. So right now we could go back to Roanoke if we lose an engine, but, you know, we may have to choose someplace in West Virginia or something like that. Passing 8,000 feet. Landing lights are on, seatbelts, no smoking. We're cleaned up. The big mistake I made there is I wasn't watching my speed on the departure, and I didn't get my flaps up quick enough. That's one thing that you'll do, especially if you're going to go and after takeoff, you're going to go like this and watch your landing gear go up. Okay, you're going to want to go, you know, you're going to want to go and do that sort of thing. Let's go and see what we can see. This is a particularly good camera angle. So I'm going to go up here. There's 10,000 feet. Let's just turn off the landing lights. Okay, so I'm trying to not turn them completely off. I just want to do one click. If you look under here, it's a little hard to see. You see there, that little guy right there? I can't zoom in anymore. But there's the landing light. Okay, let's go back up to this console. And let's go and retract the landing lights. And go back out real fast. And now we should see them going up. And they're kind of folding back up underneath there. So now you can see they're relatively flat. So that's the way that worked. Boy, that worked out pretty good. Didn't even plan that. Okay, there's 10,000 feet. Usually if you listen to the flight announcements, which most of us don't do, you'll usually hear a chime at 10,000 feet. And that's usually when the flight attendants are going to come back on the PA and remind you that the seatbelt light is on. And no, you can't go to the bathroom and stuff like that. But the captain, and I think they do a 10,000 foot chime for the flight attendants. This is also the annoying part of the flight when the flight attendants say, hey, in the seat back in front of you is the credit card application. We really think you ought to get that. I'm being Captain Sarcastic again. How terrible of me. And we got a pretty good departure here. There is our flight plan out to Jeff's. Then there's Hacks and Summit, Vladdy. So our flight plan's good. Our speed's 290. We're passing 15,000 feet. Looking down here, transponder is good. Speed brakes are disarmed. Flaps are up. My cockpit door remains unlocked because I hope that they will bring me free pizza and beer, but they never do. We're 448 miles from Roanoke. Our climb continues. There's a couple of things that we get to do here. And in fact, we could go and start setting that up right now. Let's go over here to the fly pad, and we're going to click the calculator. It says performance and top of descent. So this has got our, it's already getting our speed. Let's go to data and let's go sync. And what that's doing is that's going and get it, and it's going to keep this number constantly updated with our altitude. Now, target altitude. Assuming everything goes normally, our target altitude is this point right here on the approach. So at Adam, we're supposed to be at 4,000 feet, and then there's the final descent to the runway. Over on the spy flight, we are very dramatic, and we call it the final plunge. But really, 4,000 feet. So come on over here and put your pointer in target altitude, 4,000. And then after you're done, be sure to click outside that box. Okay, if you don't, and you try and move the camera around and stuff, you'll keep putting numbers in there. Also, and I don't know if they fixed it or not, sometimes when you type numbers in there, it will mess with these frequencies down here. I think they fixed it, but just you know, if you're on VATSIM, go check your frequency after you put the number in. And then this thing constantly updates that number, and this tells us how many miles we need to start our descent before we get to Adam. So there it is right there at Adam, okay? And we're gonna play with that in just a little bit in some other ways. But right now, we're passing, we passed 18,000 feet, so QNH is flashing at us. At 18,000 feet, that's transition in the United States. So you're going to see the pointer here. It's kind of hard to see over by the altimeter. And if you go over here and you go and put it on the bottom part of the gray knob, there's a down arrow. If you move it up, there's an up arrow. Down arrow makes it standard. Up arrow is the opposite. That's where you can adjust your altitude. Also over here, you could do the same thing. See my pointer under here under speed? You want to go and do manual speed as opposed to managed. There's up and down arrows. That's basically pushing the button and pulling the button, which you would do in the real airplane. And you can also do that for heading and altitude as well. Let's also go here, and we're going to hit the barrel button here on the backup altimeter, and that's going to make that standard. And that's 18,000 feet. We've got a fairly nice, some fairly nice flying weather now. Just some light little bumps here and there, but not bad. We're also not flying through clouds. If we've been flying through clouds, the TAT, total air temperature, is -3. When your TAT temperature is 10 degrees or colder, you turn on your engine anti-ice if you go into clouds. Microsoft Flight Simulator will ice up your airplane, and your airplane will fall out of the sky. And that's not fun. So you got to do that. 24,600. Our engine instruments, nothing's turning red. Okay, like the oil numbers aren't going down. I mean, if the oil numbers started going down, that's an engine leak. Just go back over here. If you notice that your cameras are hesitating, make sure that you're not putting a bunch of numbers in here if you've set your target altitude. 422 miles. By the way, we took off almost on time. We left the gate almost on time. I did look down and notice that just before takeoff, it was 6 minutes after we were supposed to leave the gate. So just kind of looked and noted and said, okay, we did get an on-time takeoff. This data is for another flight, but this is, I believe this is my boarding pass. Now, here's a boarding pass. Now this is for another flight, but you see the times over here on the boarding pass. It says boarding ends, flight departs, boarding begins. Now these numbers are not good for today's flight, but if you look and see here, if we're taking off, flight departs, these numbers are so completely off here. This is a bad example, but you basically need to look at about 30 minutes before your departure time. If your airplane isn't up and running and passengers are getting aboard, you're not going to make your departure time. It takes about 25 to 35 minutes to get all that done. That was a bad example because that was a very old flight and none of those numbers added up. If you've got a boarding pass, a printed boarding pass from a flight, take a look. It'll show a big number. That's the big number that it shows on your boarding pass is usually boarding begins. Okay, then it's got smaller numbers like boarding ends and then actual departure time. It's usually for passengers about 30 minutes before the actual departure time is when boarding begins. If your airplane isn't ready to accept passengers, chances are you're going to get out of the gate late. Okay, there's 28,000 feet. It's a little bumpy. It's not bad. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to do seat belts. Especially on a morning flight, if it's not too bad. Remember, your passengers were waiting in the terminal for an hour before flight time. Chances are they went to Starbucks and they got the venti instead of the grande. And they're sitting back there going, I shouldn't have had so much coffee. And by the way, you only do that once if you're a passenger. You'll learn your lesson. But still, that's just me being nice to the poor passenger back there that hasn't learned the lesson. Pretty good departure here. Now, we were looking at the flight plan. As your career progresses in the world of flight sim, and you start thinking about, I want to do that cross the pond thing, fuel is going to start to become important for you. And there's a button here. They're right below gate fuel on this, and I'm sure it's the same way in the default flight plans. REMF, remaining fuel. And my remaining fuel says 3974. Okay, 3974. That is how much fuel should be in your tanks when you land. Unless you've had to hold, go around, divert, at that, or you might have had to do a course deviation in flight air traffic control. You're not supposed to go beyond that number, below that number. Now I'm starting to add a little bit of fuel here to my flight plan, so my FAR I think the FAR here is normally 30 minutes. I kicked that up to 45 minutes. Okay, taxi time is only 5 minutes here. I'm serious. Taxi time, I really need to add more to just 5 minutes. So I'm trying to learn how to manage these better. But this remaining fuel number here, 3974, if you add up FAR, 15 minutes, and time and fuel to the alternate, that equals 3.9 tons of fuel. Okay? So on an Airbus, you go down here and you look at the fuel prediction page. And when we land at O'Hare, the fuel prediction page says we will have 4.2 tons of fuel in there. It's an estimate, but it's getting better and better. If this number, that 4.2, is significantly smaller than this number here, and you're on across the pond, it's time to start worrying, because you might run out of fuel. Now, as fuel calculations and things like that get better and better in Flight Sim, I'm noticing that I need to add less and less fuel because I'm landing spot on with fuel these days. But here's the thing: you don't want to do a mid-air refueling in a VATSIM in Cross the Pond. It's not against the rules. You know, the refueling police aren't going to get you, but your friends will laugh at you, and that's not fun. Passing 34,000 feet. Our final cruise is flight level 360. Right now, everything's pretty much smooth and by the numbers. Our fuel is looking good. Let's go to the flight plan page. We have 382 miles to Chicago. This is a relatively short flight today. Our flying time, again, on this flight is going to be 1 hour and 28 minutes. So, here's the flight plan. This is the flight plan that we got from SimBrief. This is the United Airlines 2018 format for the flight plan. It's the one I've been using for years and years, and I really kind of like this one. Most pilots are using the default, and that's the Lido style. I keep promising myself I'm going to learn to use that, but I just haven't yet. There's a lot of information here, a lot. And so I do usually keep this active flight plan over on my other monitor, and it's minimized most of the time. I've got a little thing called the flight strip. No, keep your clothes on. Come on, let's be. We gotta do stuff here. Gotta be good here. Roanoke to Chicago. This is a text file, and this thing has evolved over, I guess, the past 3 or 4 years. I used to write everything down on paper. Now everything that I do is in here. You can see my flight schedules at the top. So out time. This is the time that you have to be leaving the gate. We were within 5 minutes of that. You need to be able to leave your gate within 5 minutes. You actually need to be ready to go 10 minutes before in a VATSIM in Cross the Pond. So that becomes an important number as you go along. Okay, our duration.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again from the flight deck, your captain speaking. We've just reached our cruising altitude for the flight. As it begins to settle in, I do want to remind you to please keep your feet and elbows clear from the aisle, as the flight attendants will be coming through the cabin with galley carts shortly. Also, one more reminder to please refrain from congregating near the front galley where the flight deck door is located. Thank you.
Okay. Again, you can turn those off if you find those irritating. I have fun making fun of it, so. Here's my route. So a lot of this is stuff that I've just copied and pasted from my flight plan before we depart. Here's our latest weather. Okay, you're gonna notice in the description here on YouTube below this video that I've actually gone like this, and I've copied and pasted this. So you can go and set this up as a notepad on your desktop, and this is how you do flight notes. And I've found that it works really, really good. Now, when you're just getting started out, I'll suggest, you might want to do paper and pencil. But eventually, you'll get good enough that you can start doing flight notes in here. You might notice that I have gates here. Gate 2 and gate F23. I got that out of FlightAware. So that's a great place to go and figure out what gate to go to. How did I know how to do that? So let's go to FlightAware really fast. So FlightAware, and you could also, I believe, do Flight Radar 24. So come on down here to the route. KROA, Roanoke Regional. Destination, KORD, Chicago O'Hare. And search. Oh, look at this, Air Wisconsin. And you might see that this one is one that I've clicked on. And it says Gate 2, Gate F23. Not all airlines and not all countries will give you this information. But if you're in a bigger VATSIM event, after you land and you get off the runway and you contact ground control, a lot of the ground controllers these days will say parking. They'll ask you, say parking. What's your gate today? I don't know. Just a gate, the closest to the bar, something like that. But here, if you go and if you take a look at something like this before a big VATSIM event, you can then give them an answer that say, oh, well, thank you very much, Mr. Ground Control. We're going to be parking at Foxtrot 23 today. You don't need to say it, like a pompous ass like I was there, but you get the picture. You can kind of be ahead of that controller and go to F23. Now, you at that point in time, you better know where F23 is. So one of the things I've done is this is my stack of charts here. So I've gone, and so here's my airport ground chart for Roanoke. We did not have a SID going out. Here's our star coming in. Look over here at IAC. This is our approach. And this is the ILS or localizer 28. Here's a ground chart. Oh, I haven't loaded it in yet. And here is the Chicago area bowl of spaghetti. We are coming in on runway 28 right, so 28 right, we'll probably be able to get off at November 2 or November 1. So we're gonna come over here to one of these gates here. Maybe it'll be Kilo 3, Alpha 9, or they might taxi us back to Bravo 1. Just gotta have a general idea of where you're gonna go. Makes your life a little less confusing. But then the APC, airport parking chart. So the airplane that we were on was a CRJ, and they parked this airplane at F23. Here's the E concourse. There's F concourse. F23. There's F23 right there. How about that? Now we know where our gate is. So chances are, if we come in via this thing, Kila, Alpha 9, it would then be Bravo or Alpha, all the way here to Alpha 12, and that gets us in there. Again, this gives you a little bit of time to take a look at where you're gonna go, and in a big VATSIM event, boy, does that make your life easier. And having your charts all stacked up like this. Here's another safety tip that I have if I'm gonna be doing a big event. I'm gonna look at the airplane, at the ATIS, and for the VATSIM controllers, and I can do that with VAT Prism. And I will look at those in advance, and chances are their ATIS is gonna say they're landing 28 right, 28 center, and 27 left. I will go on a VATSIM event, and instead of just getting this ILS, I'll get all of the ILSs for the runways that they're using for landing. That way, if I have to make a switch, it's right there. It's just a little bit of pre-planning like that, and I gotta tell you, on a VATSIM event, wow, will that go a long way. So here we are. We are at our final cruising altitude of 36,000 feet. We're gonna eventually wanna be at 4,000 feet, and that's 101 nautical miles. So one of the things that we can do is the airplane does not do top of descent yet. I'm guessing that that's coming relatively quickly, but there's a little thing, there are a couple of tricks that we can do. First, go to the flight plan page. The upper left-hand button here, okay, so L1, click that. And see where it says Fix Info? Click Fix Info. And it's gonna give you an empty box like this. How about KORD, Chicago O'Hare, and plug that in. Now you've got a radial and a radius. Okay, so we're actually, our final approach fix of Adam is where we want to be at 4,000 feet, is about 10 miles away from Chicago. How many miles do we need to go to get to Chicago? 101, let's call it 110. Let's just round it. So put in 110 in your radius. Now just go back to flight plan. Look up here at your map and, okay, nothing's changed. So go up here and increase the map range to the full range. Look back at the ND and, oh, look at this. Now we got a little blue circle around. And we just drew a circle 110 miles outside of Chicago. Now this is just 110 miles, a ring, 110 miles. That's all we did. We did not, this is not our flight route. So in other words, this little range ring is not an exact top of descent. What it is it's a nice little reminder for you, especially if you keep your map down here at right around 80 miles like I do. When you start seeing the blue little lines show up, it's, oh, we got to start thinking about a descent now. So we can draw that little range ring and that helps us out. The main number we're going to look at is this right here. Distance to the airport. This is our flight plan distance, 322 miles. 101 plus 10, 110. So when we get, when we see this number get closer to 110, we at that point now know, ooh, it's time for us to start our descent. So that's a really cool little tool to have there. And beyond that, we're at final cruise. If you look, the estimated time en route, that's a number at the very top of your screen, says about 44 minutes. If you're wondering where that number comes from, that's from Sim Toolkit Pro. That overlay it's an overlay that anybody can use, and it pops it up over on OBS. So if you take a look over here, there's Roanoke. Where's our little airplane? Boy, it's hard. Oh, wow, we're over this stormy area here, coming into Vladdy. So we're getting pretty close here. Well, we're pretty close to the rain. Actually, if we look outside, there's rain down there, but we've flown above it. So this also gives you an estimated top of descent over here. There's a top of descent after Harpo. There's Prize. Some of the, there's Watson over there. Some of these are hard to read, but here's an estimated top of descent. This is Sim Toolkit Pro. Sim Toolkit Pro, by the way, is absolutely free. It works with SimBrief. It's a really good tool to have. Another one that you could use is something called Volanta. This is just what I've been using for a while. I usually keep this over on the other monitor, and most of the time I keep it minimized. But you can also see estimated time en route, 43 minutes, 11 seconds, and that's almost what it says up at the top there. So these two numbers are relatively close. This is a great tool. This is also where I'm going to go and let's get to Chicago weather, KORD. So let's look at KORD. And usually I'll just go and I'll get everything up to where it says remark. Sometimes I don't get the last number. So I'll go Control C, and I'll take this old one right here and Control V. There's the latest Chicago weather. So there we go. Visibility is not good, 1 mile. Light snow, freezing rain, anti-ice as we go into Chicago. Since we're not going back to Roanoke, one of the things that I will also do is I will start deleting things from here. We don't need to know what gate we took off of. So I will start clearing things out of my notes to keep the clutter down on my page. And for a little milk run like this, not that important. For a big VATSIM event, holy moly is that important. Because there's going to be so many things that a United captain calls distractors. So there's this United captain, his name is Mike Ray. Captain Ray wrote a series of books called the Flight Simulator Check Ride Manual, and they were books for real pilots, teaching them how to do their flight manuals, how to do their check ride. To get a job in an airline, you've got to do a check ride in a simulator. And so he wrote these books to help new people get started. They're actually really good. And he discovered that flight simulator people like them too because it's really good information. First one I got from Mike Ray was back in the 90s for Boeing 757s. Great book. You know, it's a collector's edition for me now, but it was great information. And one of the things that Captain Ray talks about in the book is distractors. And there are so many things that will distract you on a VATSIM event that you'll forget to fly the airplane. So keeping your flight notes relatively neat doesn't mean you're a neat freak. It means that you're eliminating distractions. You know, if ATC wants to know exactly where my arrival gate is, it's very easy to find on my flight notes like that. And with that, I think we're caught up. So we've probably got about a half an hour or so before we need to start our preparations for descent. When the little blue ring starts to appear here, we'll be 80 miles out. That's when I'm going to restart the video. So I'm going to hit the pause button in my record. For you, it's going to be a matter of seconds. So you should be ready to hit the pause button on the video. Keep flying the flight. And then when you start to see the range rings show up here at the top, that'd be a good time to restart the video. You can keep watching, but I'm going to pick stuff up about 60 miles before our top of descent. In the meantime, we've got a nicely flying airplane. The galley cart is running those stroopwafels and coffee back to the passengers. And I will look forward to seeing you in, well, for you, a few seconds. For me, in about a half an hour. And it's just a few seconds later for you, but it's a half an hour later for me, and look at that beautiful flight. They actually do the J.J. Abrams lens flare pretty good here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And thank you for coming back. I hope you are doing well, and your flight is going well too. Oh my goodness, look at this. That top of descent is getting even closer. Some of the things that I did while while I was on pause, I got a fresh cup of coffee, started figuring out what I was going to do for breakfast, and that's really about it. All I was doing was waiting for us to start seeing that blue line that we put in there get a little bit closer to 40 miles. So we are getting closer to our top of descent. So first thing for me, if we were on VATSIM, I would be looking for an updated ADAS for Chicago O'Hare. We're not on VATSIM, so let's just go over here to Sim Toolkit Pro, hit the METAR button. This last METAR came in at 1459 Zulu. That is the current METAR that I cut and pasted in front of you just a little bit ago. So this is our current weather. Winds right now are 310 at 9, 1 mile visibility, light snow, freezing rain. A few clouds at 007, that's 700 feet. And overcast at 140 feet, 1,400 feet. I sometimes mess the numbers up. 1,400 feet. Temperature is 0, altimeter 29, so 2989. So all of this is good. You can see we've definitely progressed a little bit. Here's that estimated top of descent. But let's take a look at our numbers here for our descent. So down here, oh, it already wants destination data. We're going to do that in a minute, but don't clear that until you actually put it in, otherwise you forget. 142 miles to go. I need 100 miles. Remember, we added 10 miles to that, so at 110 is when we're ready to go and do our descent. So we got a few more minutes, so let's put in our destination data. Go to performance and phase and descent to approach mode. Now you can clear that because you're going to put the numbers in. Altimeter, remember that one? Our altimeter is 2989. So 2989. The temperature is 0 degrees, so no degrees. The winds right now are 310 at 9, 310, and then the /09. There we go. Now, over here for baro or radio altimeter. Our approach, we're going to do a Category 1 approach, and so a Category 1 approach would be 860. So that's when we're going to have to call minimums. Wait a minute. We're not going to see the runway at 860 feet. We can't do a Category 1 approach. Let's see. Radar altimeter is 97. I think we could probably do a radar altimeter approach there. So 97 feet above the ground. Or Category 3B approach on this one. That is 0. Let's go ahead and I'm going to put in the 860, but we're going to very probably activate Category 3 for this. So 860, let's see if we've got minimums at 860. I doubt we will, but we're going to plan for a Cat 3 approach. Okay, so all of this is good. While we're verifying stuff, go over to Radio Nav and look over on your charts. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, there's your frequency, 111.1 ITSL. Let's look and see if those are in here. 111.1 ITSL. Our inbound course is 273 degrees, 273. Now's a great time to verify that the computers have dialed in your correct ILS frequency, and they have, so we're good to go there. Let's go back over to performance. We're in cruise mode. Let's go back over to flight plan. We have 125 miles to go. We have decided that we need 110 miles to get to our final plunge altitude. So all is right with the world. We do know that that final plunge altitude is going to be 4,000 feet. We could dial that in now. So let's dial in 4,000 feet. 7654. Okay, that's good. But we're not going to hit the button for another 12 miles. And we're going to make this managed, by the way. Now, we don't have a lot of constraints to hit down here, so the airplane's just going to manage us down to that 4,000 feet. The Watson arrival really doesn't have a whole lot of altitude constraints for us. So it's all about coming down at ATC's convenience on this one. So there's Watson, yeah, there's Fort Wayne, just looking to see, there's some suggested altitudes. They'd like us to probably not be lower than 11,000 feet there, but I don't see a bunch of altitudes on this one. So this is just gonna manage us down to 4,000 feet on this one. Now, if we were on VATSIM, they might give us altitudes. They would tell us to descend at pilot's discretion, blah, 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 blah. We're just going to go ahead and do our thing. 6 miles, and then we will, as they said in Mystery Science Theater, press the button. This airplane, by the way, does holds. We were in a VATSIM event about a week ago, less than a week ago, and this airplane did a hold flawlessly on our way into Hanover, Germany. So it really did. It was a flawless approach. I was really, really impressed with the airplane. That's when I decided it was time for me to update the cold and dark video for this airplane that I have here over here on YouTube. There's so many improvements. And you know what? In the next few, maybe even weeks or months, we're going to get, Fly-by-Wire says there's going to be some big updates in there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that is. So expect another Airbus video then. 110, there it is. Let's press the button. Remember the up and down arrow here? So on the top part of the altitude, we want the up arrow. The dot should appear, and that means it's going to be a managed descent. And you can see we are descending. Down we go into Chicago. Temperature outside the airplane is pretty chilly. The total air temperature, it's minus 27 when we get in the clouds at a minimum. Engine anti-ice. Because there is freezing rain and snow in Chicago, I'm probably going to turn on the wing anti-ice system as well. It is going to be a stormy day in the neighborhood.
Deck, ladies and gentlemen, as you may have noticed, we have begun our initial descent down to our destination. Now would be a good time to wrap up any business you need to take care of as we prepare for our approach. If you are up, once you return to your seat, we ask that you remain seated till the aircraft arrives safely at the gate. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for arrival.
Yeah, if you're in the bathroom, it's time to finish up the paperwork because seatbelts are about ready to go on. Yes, I am not above an occasional bathroom joke. The whole goal is if you can make somebody, if somebody smiles, it's a successful joke. That being said, the way the world is these days, I'm also going to say if you've hurt somebody with the joke, that even if somebody laughs at it, that's something I really try hard to never do. And that's going to be the extent of the seriousness that I'm going to give you today. Passing 32,000 feet, we are still above the clouds. We can still leave the seatbelt sign off. Generally, what I will do is, my rule of thumb is 25,000 feet for seatbelts. If there's turbulence, seatbelts. But 25,000 feet is when I like to go and turn that on. Some flights that I've been on, the announcement you just heard, that's also the time that the captain will turn on seatbelts and stuff like that. And in fact, I've noticed that at least at United, they when there is we've reached our final cruising altitude, we've started our descent, the captain will actually, as they're talking, say, "So we are now turning on the seatbelt sign." And then you hear the chime and the sign goes on. So I think they're trying to reinforce with the passengers that the captain has turned on the seatbelt sign. Sit down, put on your seatbelt. I think that maybe that's part of what's going on, because I've noticed that they're now flipping that switch while they're making an announcement. Maybe they've just been paying attention to flight simmers on Twitch. Who knows? I doubt it. Passing 28,000 feet. Good time for a separate sip of coffee. Everything else is looking good here. We're at 92 miles out. This says 77. Might be descending us a little quick. I don't know. What's our descent rate? 2,400 feet per minute. If we're still a long ways out of Chicago and we're approaching 11,000 feet, I will sometimes stop the descent. Fact is, I'm going to do that right now. I think we're descending too fast. I'm going to stop my descent at 11,000 feet. I do not want the airplane to go into super slow mode. You know, otherwise you're creeping in at 250 knots and you've still got, 100 miles to go. We've got 88 miles to go. I'm going to just put that in as a little safety, and just so that we can continue right in and get on the ground here. Okay, everything's looking pretty good. Trying to think, I've forgotten something, but I don't know what it is. You can also get ATIS information and weather information through the McDo. They are slowly making this airplane. That's the little box down here. There's the CPDLC box. They're slowly making this airplane CPDLC capable, and it's getting pretty good. There's really good quality payware airplanes over on X-Plane that do not have CPDLC capabilities at all. And I gotta tell you, I really appreciate the airplanes that have those, particularly in VATSIM events, because that's how you're gonna get your clearance. That's how you could also get your pushback. That's also how on a transatlantic flight, you're gonna be able to do your transatlantic reporting, just like the real airplanes do. So I really appreciate the fact that CPDLC is slowly getting rolled out, and mostly CPDLC or text messaging for ATC and airplanes. CPDLC is mostly in Europe, but there are a couple of places in the United States and in other parts of the world that are starting to implement CPDLC. I think Chicago is one of them. And if you wanted to, if we were on VATSIM, if we came over to the radio page, we're not on VATSIM right now, but if you're using Hoppy ACARS, you would click this little button here, and that would connect you to the Hoppy ACARS network. We're not there today, so we're not going to do that. But this is something that's really getting exciting. I don't know nearly enough about it either, so it's a huge learning process for me on this. Okay, passing 21,000 feet. We have 76 miles to go on the flight. I need 55 miles. I think my little stop at 11,000 feet might save us just a little bit of time. Not a lot of time, a little bit of time. If you're not sure where you are, one of the cool things about SimToolkit Pro is it's got the little map here. You can have a look at your flight plan and see how you're doing. This is a really nice way, especially in a big VATSIM event or something. This is a great way to figure out where you are, make sure you're where you're supposed to be. You know when this is also really, really good? In some of the old school Boeings that use an INS SEVA system. Because let me tell you something, plugging in latitudes and longitudes and stuff like that, oh my goodness, it's very easy to transpose a number or two out there. And if you do that, life becomes pretty bad. My first time out with a INS SEVA, it was a departure out of Denver. I got the number wrong, and it was about to fly me into Pikes Peak. So, you know, you've got to be careful with those. And being able to have a look at the map like that with one of the old school airplanes is sort of like cheating, but at the same time, boy, it's comforting to know that I didn't cause a problem. Here is the rest of our flight plan. We're coming up on Hopo, and here is CNEC. There is the ILS. So you can see we're doing pretty good. We're 60 miles out. So all is pretty good here. I'm feeling pretty good about this approach at the moment. STD, standard, so it's altimeter time. So we come up here and we click the top part of the button, the up arrow, and the METAR says 2989. So 2989 for the altimeter. Let's also do the backup altimeter, 2989. Okay, that's good. Where those clouds are getting closer and closer, including the rain and the snow and everything else. So also remembering, be ready to turn on the anti-ice. We do have seat belts, and all of that is looking pretty good too. Nothing really else to do. 65 miles in the plan. Now it says I only need 37 miles to get to 4,000 feet. That's why I'm stopping at 11,000 feet. We were going to have to creep in just a little bit too much. And one thing is, in the VATSIM events and stuff, they're not going to want you creeping in. You know, maintain your speed. They want to get you in and on the ground because there's, you know, 15, 20 planes behind you that they want to get in and on the ground. One of the things that I'm noticing the VATSIM controllers are doing more of, particularly in Europe, is they're giving you a lot more direct twos. Which in the real world controllers are giving airplanes, you know, direct to, and you might blow off 2 or 3 spots on your flight plan because they're trying to move you ahead a little bit faster if they possibly can. 2 reasons: it gets you out of the way of the airplanes behind you, but also they're helping the airlines save money. You're saving gas. You might get into the gate a little bit sooner. Now, at some big airports, they don't want you getting into the gate too soon because then you're just sitting on the ground burning fuel waiting for your gate to open up. So it's a little bit of a delicate dance in there. Okay, coming up on 60 miles to Adams, so let's go ahead and go from 80 to 40. That's looking good. Looking down here at the clock, it is now 15:51 Zulu. So about now, new METARs are coming out. ATIS usually gets updated around the top of the hour. So we're probably going to get some new weather information in just a bit. I'm going to wait just a bit here. Well, we can go and play with something. There's going to be another website that I want to show you here. And this is the METAR TAF website. And in fact, I'm going to put this one next to that other website on the flight notes that I'm going to clip out for you. This is a great website for you to have. So let's go KORD. And usually this suggestion box pops up. Click that. And now put our arrival runway, which is 28 right. And now you're going to get a good idea, a really great visual representation of what to expect. So we're going to have a crosswind from the right on 28 right of about 9 to 10 knots. Okay? We have light snow and rain, visibility 1 mile, ceiling 1,400 feet. So technically we might not need to do a Category 3 landing. But you can see that, you know, if visibility's down, that's kind of a deal. 14:59 Zulu. So this is the old weather too. So this has not updated with the new, this has not updated yet. This is a great website. And they now have apps that you can get for Google Play or the Apple Store. I think that these are going to be paywares. But I really do like, this is a great way to visualize what the weather is going to do to your airplane while you're landing. Especially if you're new, trying to figure out, okay, the wind is blah, 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 blah. I'm landing on this runway. I've got 1,000 other things to do. But if you can visualize it with that picture, I think it just helps, you know, us humans, particularly when we're new at something, get the concept a little bit better of, oh, okay, this is what that's going to do to me. Okay, over here you can see we're at 11,000 feet. We're at 250 knots, so it did slow me down a little bit here. But obviously we still, you know, it slowed me down too much. Was there a speed restriction and the constraint in the in this that I missed? I didn't think so. Maybe I missed a speed constraint. We're going to prize, Hopto, Micta. I don't see one, but it did slow me down on our flight plan. We have 45 miles to go. I only need 22 miles to get down to 4,000 feet. Let's stay up above the snow for just a little bit longer, okay? I didn't see a speed in there, so I don't know why this thing slowed me down at 11,000 feet. I do see a deceleration here, but I don't see a deceleration anyplace else. 42 miles, 22 miles, so we can chill just a little bit longer here. Maybe we'll descend between Dweeb and Seanak. There's our little experiment for today. Find out if your humble pilot becomes a dweeb or not. Because, hey, you know. Okay, lights are all good. Nothing else to do up here. Seatbelts are on. Nothing to mess with there. We know it's going to be a full flaps landing. We could go ahead. I don't think I'm going to need speed brakes, so let's do this. We're going to arm our speed brakes. And let's also get auto brakes. There we go. So far, so good. I did go and look to see if I could find my old Airbus checklist. I couldn't find it. I was going to bring that out. I really need to try and find those. I used them all the time when I was over doing P3D flying with the really high quality Airbus that's available for P3D. I don't use that anymore because P3D has constantly crashed and it was a problem for me. Which is too bad. I really like that Airbus. The Airbuses that are over on X-Plane are really good too. But I've gotten to the point where I've been very lazy and I've stopped using these. So 35 miles, but I think it's getting to the point where we need to use those. Now for the INI builds, the A300 and the A310, there's a checklist available over here. Oh, you better bet. I use those. Just because there's so many little things to remember and it all doesn't stay up there. So the checklists really help out a lot. Okay, there's 33. I still need 22. How about if we go ahead and let it remanage the descent here? And I say 32. That's the 10 miles. Let's go ahead and re-engage manage descent. Oh, you actually have to put your altitude in there. Descend to 4,000, then you get to re-engage. You see what happens if you try and push the button? You think, oh, okay, it didn't happen. Why? Oh, you have to put in the altitude. That happens all the time. And it's okay, you can fix that. The only time it's not okay is when you go and you put it out on a YouTube video and everybody sees what you forget. That point in time, then it becomes a little bit more of a problem. See, generally, sterile cockpit begins at 10,000 feet, I believe, for some airlines. Other airlines may be different, but 10,000 feet is when sterile cockpit begins. That's in the real world. It's no more talking about, you know, how good the pizza was last night or anything like that. It's all full concentration on the flight. You know, could be there's even a rule that says no coffee, no sipping your coffee until, you know, after sterile cockpit. We are at 10,000 feet. This is when I usually do landing lights. So landing lights are going to go on. I also do my nose light, so that's good too. And I'm going to ring a bell, let the cabin crew know it's 10,000 feet. There's a deceleration here at CNAC. Right now we're at 250. Generally at this point, if you're on a VATSIM event or something, or if you're looking at other airplanes, you know, in the live world, they're going to try and get everybody at the same speed and then move people up and down. So right now I'm at 250. I'm going to just see what it what happens at this deceleration point here and see what it does. But generally, as we're getting within 30 miles of intercepting glide slope and localizer, at this point, I'd really rather be going about 210. Okay, going into the clouds. Engine anti-ice. Going on. Flump. It'll be interesting to see if we, if when we land, we have ice on our airplane. Nothing yet, but so see what that deceleration point does. If it doesn't do anything, then I'm going to go and do my 210. In the spy flight, you will hear me talking about the hash marks for flaps. You see these two little gold lines here? That's the top end of where you can start deploying your flaps. That's probably not the correct term on this one, but again, this is what I use. That's what I use for knowing, okay, that's a safe flap deployment speed for flaps. Okay, we're coming up on that, almost there. We're still holding 250 knots, passing 6,000 feet. As we get closer and closer to that, I'm going to see, and we'll know because we're going to see one of those triangles disappear. I think the yellow triangle will disappear as it slows us down. We're over the top of that. Oh, look at that. It dropped us down to 240, to 239. So it did drop us a little bit there. So, oh, it dropped us even more. It's dropping us to 131. Okay, that's a little bit too much. So I'm going to take over. I'm going to drop us to 210 is what I want right now. And I base that 210 based on I will sit and watch airplanes on that real world website, FlightAware, and I will go and focus in on airplanes approaching a real airport. And then you can go to live ATC and actually listen to approach and departure at that airport and hear what those airplanes are doing. And so about this point, we're going to be at 210. There's the little hash marks. There's the green dot. I'm going to do flaps 1. And the flaps are now down to flaps 1. And by the way, I'm using the flap handle on the Thrustmaster. Wow, that is really neat. I'm really enjoying that. Okay, we are now officially past CNAC. If you look at the star, we are now turning to a heading of 270 degrees going out. So there we go. So 270 degrees. But we at this point need to start thinking they're going to start vectoring us to Adam here. We are now 30 miles from Adam, continuing our descent to 4,000 feet. Let's also, we've got a second. I'm going to just go over here. Do we have a new METAR? And this one was, this is a new METAR. So I'm just going to do a fast Control C. I'm going to put this over in my flight notes. Altimeter has changed a bit. So let's go down. And first of all, the altimeter is now 2990. So 2990. Usually the changes are not big, but there are some changes. We're also going to go over here to the perf page for a second. And altimeter is 2990. The temperature is still 0. Winds right now are 320 at 12. So winds 320 at 12. Got that good. All right, we're good to go there. Performance, we're already in approach mode. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go to 180 now. Again, this is based on watching real-world airplanes approaching international airports that I'll watch. Our speed's coming down. We're waiting for our next set of hash marks. We are now within about 20 miles of Adam, so I'm going to go and hit the LS button. We've already verified that ILS, the frequency is correct. There's those hash marks. So flaps 2, you can see flaps 2 are now indicated here. So flaps 2 are there, and we're slowing it down. I still don't have glide slope and localizer. The winds are going to be blowing us generally along this line. You can see our heading here. If you wanted, at this point, we could also do direct Adam. So we could come down here, go direct to, and direct Adam. Or Adame. Direct to will now take us direct to Adam. 180 knots, flaps are 2, direct Adam. Altimeter's set, cabin's good. Okay, come on over here. If you're like me and on a long haul flight you tend to scrunch around in your chair a little bit, now's the perfect time. Sit up straight, be sure you can reach all your controls. I've found out on some long flights my brain gets a little bit fuzzy, flight simming along, so it's a good idea to get settled in your chair. We're just slightly below this hash mark here for flaps 3. I'm not going to deploy those quite yet. And I usually go managed, speed, and gear down at 5 miles. That's when I seem to notice those airplanes slowing it down to landing speed. And generally, ATC might be telling us 180 knots to wilt. So that basically means keep the speed up, and between wilt and the runways when we can decelerate and do all that. But right now we're waiting to see if we've got our, if we're going to get our glide slope and localizer, which we should. I'm slowly getting settled in the chair, move the microphone back. I can see everything well. I'm looking over. I can reach all of my controls. You know, the throttle hasn't slid on the desk off to the side too much. Okay, this says IMED. That's not correct. So 111.1, that's picking up something other than our ILS right now. We're looking for ITSL. So this has picked up the wrong frequency at the moment. But we're still 30 miles away. So I'm not gonna panic yet. We're already at the intercept altitude, so we're good to go there. I think that that's normal for you to pick up another frequency like that. That's also why you make sure that before you go and lock onto a frequency, yeah, that's really the one that I want to be on. We've already done the rest of our preps. Speed brakes are armed. Auto brakes are set. All is right with the world. Just changed. Look at that. ITSL. That is our glide slope and localizer. Look at that. That's our ILS. And you can see we have half diamonds here. That means it's kind of way off to the side. But we should be fairly close when we get over here to Adam. Now, if we wanted to get over on the localizer, we could turn our course heading maybe 5 degrees to the over to the left there. And maybe that would get this thing moving. But right now, everything seems to be okay. Nothing is really badly broken at the moment, so if it's not broken, I'm not going to try and fix stuff. But I'm going to keep a close eye on this bottom one here. When this thing starts to roll over here, when that starts to roll over, we're going to come up here and we're going to hit the approach page. We're also very probably going to hit the autopilot 2 button. But we're going to wait until we see category 3 up there before we do that. Okay, we're coming up on 20 miles from the runway. We are 10 miles from Adam. So let's go from 40 to 20 on the map. There's everything that we need there. All is looking good. Don't see any other problems here. Cockpit door remains unlocked. But still no pizza and beer from the flight attendants. Life's just never fair. 20 nautical miles left on this. And that's about it, about 20 miles. So here's our distance from the runway. Oh, look at that. The diamond is now a full diamond and it's starting to slide over a little bit. Let's go ahead and activate approach. There's approach. I'll bet it's going to make a bit of a turn, maybe to get us over there. Don't know. You can tell it's GS and LOC. So localizer and glide slope are in blue. That means that it's armed. Also, it sees that this is a Category 3 approach. Right now, it's a single autopilot. We'll go ahead and just let the airplane continue to do its thing. I may have gone to 180 knots a little bit too soon here. Could probably have held on to 210 knots, maybe just a little bit longer. So it's making this a little bit more of a drawn out approach, but things will start happening fast enough anyway. Our little diamond is slowly inching over. Some new thing that's popped up here. You see, here's my regular mouse pointer like this. Watch as I move this over here. See over here? There's some new thing. I've got these two little arrows going on either side. I don't know what that is, but one of the things is particularly here in the McDo, when you're trying to push some buttons up here. See here, now here's an up and down thing. I don't know what that is yet, but that kind of gets in the way of being able to put numbers in. So be aware of that, especially if you're running short on time. Okay, it's now localizer's got a star, and you saw we did make a bit of a turn to go over and get us centered up on that localizer. Glide slope still is only a half diamond here, so we're still below the glide slope. But the next thing that I'll do is I'll look to see that we get the full diamond and this thing starts going down. We're now getting ourselves nicely centered up on the localizer here. And the star will go away, there'll be a box, and then it will be all green, and that means we're all nicely established on the localizer. Still not established on the glide. Okay, there's the little box. So now we're getting ourselves all established and locked into that. Locked into the lock. Okay, now all those indicators are gone, so we're established on the localizer. We're good to go there. Glide slope is now a full diamond, and it's coming down now. So we're going to be starting our descent any second. So that's good. Again, visibility is 1 statute mile. We should be able to see the runway. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to activate my second autopilot. We are now in dual Category 3 approach. This is auto land time. Generally, I don't like to do an auto land if I don't have to. I'm, flight simming. I'm here to land the plane myself. But the weather's bad. This is part of why they created Category 3s. Okay, so we're now within 10 miles of the runway. We're going to come back up here. Let's go and 10 miles. This is where we'll do our speed reduction at Wilt. That's also where I'll do gear and manage speed. Good time now. We have a second. Go to the perf page. Make sure it takes you to the approach. If it takes you to another page, you're going to see something down here that says go to approach mode, confirm approach mode. Now is the time to do that, especially if you have control of your speed like we do. And glide slopes in a box. We have started our final plunge to the runway. Again, we're going to keep 180 knots until Wilt. Because we've checked this right here and approach is now displayed here in the McDo, all we have to do is click the top part of the button here for speed, and that's manage speed for landing. Everything else is looking good. 3 miles from Wilt. We're at 3,000 feet.
2,500.
There we go. We're already starting to get some call outs. Because there's snow and freezing rain, wing anti-ice now. Let's go outside and see. Oh, look at that. We got ice on the airplane. It's not the icing. They've turned that down. Remember when icing in Flight Simulator was like this more dramatic? You know, you were just covered in ice. I think they've been fine-tuning that a little bit. Okay, we are 1.3 miles from Wilt, and you see that that's going to put us right around 5 miles from the end of the runway. So that's why it is that I usually do manage speed and gear. We can also do a cabin call now.
Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.
There we go. Landing gear, signs are on, flaps are not full, so we're still waiting to do these things. Okay, there's Wilt. So come up here, hit the top button. Now we're managed. Landing gear. By the way, the gear and flaps are great on the Thrustmaster control. I really like that. Okay, we're good for flaps 3. Flaps 3. I see snow outside the cockpit. I'm actually kind of surprised that the people that do, you know, sticks and throttles, it took them so long to do some of the civilian controllers. Okay, we're pretty close to full flaps. Let's go full flaps. And if you look down, except for the passenger signs, which are on, our ECAM checklist is clean and green. Now we're just looking for the ground. I see a little bit of the ground in the lower right-hand corner, out the left window there. I don't see runway lights. Feet are on the rudder pedals. Starting to just rest my hand on the side stick. I'm also going to start putting my hand over by the throttles. For 2 reasons. 1, to be able to take over for landing, or number 2, in case we decide we're going to go around. There's 500. Okay, so I think we've already passed minimums. Minimums were 860 on a Category 1 approach. I see lights. I'm still going to let the airplane do its thing.
400.
Okay, I'm going to commit to a Category 3 landing.
300.
So my hand's on the throttles, ready to pull the throttles back when the airplane tells me.
200. 200. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10. Retard.
Reversers. Full reverse. Letting the airplane still handle the auto land. 60 knots. Stow the reversers. Tap the brakes. Autopilot's off. Off on the high speed. It's snowing and it's raining. I'm going to get my flaps up, my speed brakes down now. Real pilots are going to tell you, no, wait until you're clear of the runway, but we don't want to get snow and ice in there. So my guess is they're going to do that a little bit faster. Okay, we are here. I did not notice our exit point here. My guess is we exited at either N2 or N1. No, or N4. That could be Bravo. If that's Bravo and Alpha 15, this is perfect for us. In fact, I think we did. Very nice auto land. Let's do lights. Anti-ice is off. APU's going on. Strobes are going off too. Yeah, I think this is really where we want to be. So we'll come on in here. APU's going on. Okay, that is that terminal that's right next to Foxtrot. So that was Golf. We're making the next turn in, and our reminder is it's F23. That is about 2 from the end. And if we look over here, I'll bet that's going to tell us that that's Alpha 12. That's Alpha 13. Oh, perfect. So the next thing we want is to make a turn in there. There's our gate. APU is coming up. We've got strobes off. All the lights are good. Okay, there's 3 lines to get in here. I'm going to assume that they probably want us on the 3rd. There we go over there. So it should be 25. That's 27. Then it should be gate 25, which should be this one. Ours should be right there. This is a really good payware. You might need a little bit of thrust every now and then. Other airport, they're going to turn these things off. You know, when they get to the gate, I'm doing that now. Okay, and there it says, gate 23. If it seems a little small for an Airbus, yep, F-23, there's our gate. This is, they would have used the CRJ for this flight up to Roanoke. Might need a little more power going around here. Look forward, reduce. They don't really have good gate guidance, I've noticed, going into the airports here in Microsoft Flight Simulator, so you're kind of on your own. It's really easy to over-control something like this. Happy Pappy would like me to turn off the lights. That's probably good right there. Parking brakes. Look up here. Do we have an APU? We do. Let's even do the bleed on. It's kind of cold outside. And let's go ahead and do engine number 2, engine number 1. That looks good. We'll also do the beacon. We're going to do the emergency exit lights disarmed. We're going to do seatbelts off. We're going to turn off our fuel pumps. They've already plugged in a ground power unit, so we're going to kick in ground power. And so all of these look good. Looking down here, we should have, we're off not taxiing, so we're going to turn the transponder off. We should turn off predictive wind shear. I usually hit the reset button on the rudder for the next pilot, but that's actually a checklist item for your next, for the next pilot. We've still got a little bit of ice and snow on the front of the airplane, and now we'll go to toolbar pushback, go to aircraft. We can get a jetway, and we'll also get baggage. And the jetway here, a little bit better designed, so you can see it's coming up to the right spot here. The door has just opened. I think that they wait until the jetway is actually in place before doors open, but they probably do it in Flight Simulator so that we can actually see the door open. And you can see the cabin is now open. Passengers can now get off. So how do you get rid of your passengers? Remember, we loaded them. Come down to the McDo. You can also see that it's reset. Go to McDo menu. ATSU, AOC menu, go to weight and balance, type in a number 0, put it in the top, and then when it all turns blue, hit start. Passengers will start getting off the airplane. My passengers are getting on and off a little on the fast side. So if we go over here and click the little gear down here and go to realism, you can see that my ADIRS align time is real. My DMC self-time test is real. Boarding time, I have it set to fast. I'm now changing this today to real. I'm setting that over there. Let's see, separate tiller. I would love to have this, but unfortunately, my stick is dirty, so I can't use the twist stick for a tiller, which is too bad. This airplane's built for that. Data link transmission time. I'm going to go ahead and put the data link to real too. I'm going to start getting things a little closer to real time in this airplane. And we made it. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was arrested. What's the current time? The current time is 16:21 Zulu. Look at our flight plan. We were supposed to be at the gate at 16:30. We got to the gate 10 minutes early. That's great news. My remaining fuel was supposed to be 3974. How's my fuel? 4480. We had more than enough fuel, so we didn't run out of fuel. Those are the real big tests that I have as far as what it is that you're supposed to be doing with these airplanes. If you have enough fuel, if you arrived on time, hey, you won the airline game. there today. So, you know, 3 cheers, and there we go. And there's the flight. At this point, my passengers are going to get off. There is no ground stuff for baggage, but that's just eye candy in this thing right now. Looks like we got a little bit of snow and ice on these lights over here. And we took this airplane on a VATSIM flight, a full VATSIM event recently, and I've got to tell you, it performed like a champ. So 3 cheers to Fly-by-Wire. 3 cheers to the developers of Toolbar Pushback. I mean, seriously, these things are getting really good, and I can't wait to see what Fly-by-Wire does with this airplane when FMS version 2 comes out. That's going to be really kind of a neat thing for sure. And there we go. I think we did it. Really nice flight. I certainly enjoyed it for sure. Thank you so much for watching. Again, as always, I do like to say this is not about the right way versus the wrong way. It's just what works for me. Leave your questions and comments in chat here. I'm still really new on YouTube, so I'm one of those that still reads all my questions and comments. And your questions or comments could result in a new video that I might do. You can even leave suggestions for videos there too. If you wonder why I call myself the Spy, it's because I got into writing some spy novels on Amazon. We'll talk about that over on the Spy Flight, which is on Twitch. 757 Spies, where you'll find me. I'm small on YouTube, so if you really like this and wanted to show some support, come on over and subscribe on Twitch. That's the best way to do that right now. And also, come and fly with us too. Our departure time is 1900 Zulu, and we depart every day, Tuesday through Sunday at 1900 Zulu. Thank you so much for watching. I sure appreciate it. I hope you found this video helpful, and it helps you navigate the friendly skies even easier. We'll see you soon again here on YouTube, and even sooner probably on Twitch. Take care.